All right, guys, I know I promised you that the next video would be one of us in the shop working on shop projects. I'm sorry to disappoint. As you can see, we're in the shop, we're working on the project. We're just not done with the project to where I can make a complete video. So it's either go a few extra days without having a video, or I figured I could do an Ask the Farmer segment. And I know a lot of y'all like the Ask the Farmer segments, and we really haven't done any since August. So I figured kind of fill in a little bit of dead space with another Ask the Farmer video, see if we can get through a few more of your questions. But anyway, just to give you a little update where we're at, yes, we're working on the planter. We're adding some more technology and stuff, and that video hopefully will be out soon. We're waiting on a few more parts to come in so we can get this thing finished up, but we're making real good progress on it, and hopefully here in a couple of days we'll have it finished up and I'll be able to put together a video about what all we've done to the planter this year. I really don't know exactly where we left off on the Ask the Farmer series. I was trying to do all the questions asked in order. I looked back on the last video and I found the questions that I answered, and I think I've got the next one in line. So these are questions that have been asked, well, probably 7-8 months, but hopefully the guys that asked them are still watching and I'll be able to answer your questions. All right, these questions were asked on the second episode of Ask the Farmer, and the first one is from Louis Paparella. I hope I pronounced that right. Anyway, he asked me, non-farmer here, Matt, how do you pay your labor, hired hands, etc. yourself? Is it cyclical? Dollar amounts are not of any of my business, but percentages. Depreciation of equipment, land, buildings, vehicles, owned versus rented land. Not looking to step on anyone's toes, just curious how it works in your operation. Thanks for any reply. Well, Louis, I'll start off with myself. I pay myself a salary. Actually, everybody here on the farm, other than our kids, is a salary position. I get paid a salary, Zach gets paid a salary, Kelly gets paid a salary. I found out it's a lot easier that way rather than having to keep up with time cards and payroll. You know, everybody gets paid the same amount each and every week. You know, I'm not going to say what Zach makes. That's completely his business or whatever. I will tell you, I pay myself about $29,000 per year in salary. You know, Kelly also gets paid a salary. I'm not going to say what she makes, but you know, everybody on this farm gets paid. Everybody on this farm gets paid salary. I'm not looking for my salary to really get rich off of. You know, I don't need a lot of money to survive. You know, we worked hard on paying off debts up at our house and everything for quite a while, and you know, we're really debt free up on the personal side of my life. I'm just bringing in enough to pay the everyday bills and everything. You know, if something big does come up, you know, because I own the business, I do have the flexibility that I can take a little bit of extra money from the farm for either big projects we got up the house or emergencies or stuff like that. And I've done that in the past. But as far as base salary, I just pay myself enough to what I need to live off of, and then, you know, and we're trying to invest as much money back into the farm as possible. As far as our land rent and everything, we got some. We actually own about 22% of our acre, so don't have to pay any rent on it. Just got to pay land taxes on it, and then all the rest of our ground is rented, and it's rented either on shares or it's rented on cash rent. I'd say the most of our acres are share rented, either on a 1/3 and 2/3 lease or an 80-20 lease. We do have one lease that was grandfathered in that was on a 75%, 25% share. And basically how those work is on the 2/3, 1/3 lease, I get 2/3 of all income. I pay 100% of about half the profits. The landlord pays, the landlord gets 1/3 of all income off the farm and pays 1/3 of some of the inputs. 80-20 lease is just what it says. I get 80% of all the income, but I pay 100% all the inputs, and then the landlord gets 20% of all income and does not pay any inputs. 75-25 is just like the 80-20 lease. So I get 75% of all the income, pay all the inputs. Landlord gets 25% of the income and pays no inputs. So that's how that works, and hope that answered your question. Next question is from Carl Austin. Is the cotton defoliation required because of the use of mechanical harvesting, or are there other reasons? The cotton defoliation, it's not required to actually harvest the cotton, but defoliating it allows us to make only one trip across the field with the cotton picker. In the past, when defoliants were really expensive, you know, say the 80s or stuff, sometimes we didn't defoliate and we would have to pick the cotton twice. We started picking once when it was about 2/3 open, and then after we got done making the first pass, we'd have to go back and pick it again the second time. We called that a scrapping pass. Well, it's gotten so expensive to own and operate a cotton picker that defoliating it and knocking all the leaves off and then spraying a bowl opener on there to make all the bowls open up is a lot cheaper if we can do that and then only have to pick it one time. And I know a lot of people have commented, well, it looks like there's still a lot of cotton left out there in the field. In reality, it looks like there is, but there's really not that much. I'd estimate a well-tuned picker, depending on the variety of cotton they pick, is anywhere from 93 to 99% efficient in getting the cotton. And what cotton is left out there would not pay to operate the picker to go back and get that, because it's very expensive to run a cotton picker. You know, diesel fuel, grease, labor, the wear and tear on the machine, the depreciation that you get from every hour that you run the machine. It's very expensive to own and operate a cotton picker. So the defoliation process, just knocking all the leaves off, allows sun and wind to get to the bowls. You also spray a bowl opener on there to really help all those bowls open up so you can make one pass through the field. And it also improves your grade because you don't have the leaves and stuff on the plant that kind of get ground into the fiber when the cotton picker goes through the field. So you get a little bit cleaner cotton, which improves your grade, which also improves the price that you get. Next question is from Doug Whitman, and he asked a little bit what Lewis was asking. Is land rent by the acre or share based with the landlord? In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, we have land rents from $200 to $600 per acre. Woo! That's a lot there. Big operations need forage and a place for manure. Do you have access to manure? Well, Doug, I already kind of touched on our land rents and how they work. Here in West Tennessee, land rents are a lot lower than what you'll find in other parts of the country, mainly because the soil's not as productive here. Midwest, you know, it's not uncommon to see land rents of, I think, $300 to $450 an acre, kind of what I heard. But their APH on corn is like 225 bushels per acre, whereas say our 5-year average here in West Tennessee is 175 bushels per acre, or 173 bushels per acre. So the productivity is a lot greater up there, and it's not quite as risky to produce a corn crop up there because their soils are a lot better than what we have here, and they're not quite as big a risk of losing money. And I still don't know how they afford those big land rents. I don't know how you afford your land rents and still make any kind of profit to own and operate the business. But that's the reason our land rents are a lot lower. Our land rent averages around $110 an acre. I've got some higher. I've got some lower. You know, I've heard of land rents in this area being somewhere in the $150 to $180 range, but that's on really good ground, bottom ground, which we don't hardly have any ground like that. You know, our cash rents are lower value because we're farming usually a lot poorer ground, smaller fields, cut up fields, got thinner soils on them, and their productivity is not as high. So when we're bidding for land, we try to take all that into account and then, you know, bid on it appropriately to where we're not going to lose tons and tons of money if we have a crop failure that year. But we also try to be competitive for what the type of ground is. And second part of your question, do I have access to manure? The only manure I've got access to is chicken manure. I mean, there is some cattle in the area, there's some horses in the area, but you know, it's not feedlots or anything. It's grazing out in the pasture, and I don't know a way to collect that manure. But we do have access to chicken manure. A lot of our chicken manure historically has come out of southern Kentucky, and we've trucked it down here because they've had chicken barns up there for quite a while. we're just now in this area, Tyson has built a plant and we're just now getting chicken production in this area. So hopefully here within the next year or two, we're going to have even better access to chicken manure, hopefully at a lower cost because we don't have to pay all the trucking to haul it down from southern Kentucky. So hopefully in the next year or two, a lot of these houses will be in full production. It's just now getting started and we'll have a lot better access to a cheaper source of manure. And I much prefer to use chicken manure over the other manures anyway. Hogs, we don't have any hog production other than Tosh Farms all the way up in Henry, Tennessee. We don't have access to any other manures, but I prefer the chicken manure because it's got a lot higher concentration of nutrients. You don't have to apply near as much to the soils to get this equivalent fertilizer amount that you would from commercial fertilizer. And doesn't have a good smell, but no manure is going to have a good smell, but I'm really a big fan of it. Next question is from Family Farmer, Tennessee. He likes the looks of our cover crops. He knows we use a roller crimper on our cover crops, but what I think about using other equipment on rolling and crimping the cover crop, like a cultipacker or a rolling basket. Family Farmer, we've actually tried some other methods. Before we got our crimper, we tried some other methods and none of them just really worked good. We've got a small cultipacker, probably 10 foot wide, and it would kind of lay the cover crop over some, but it wouldn't crimp it because of the way the cultipacker is designed. It's got ribs running with the way that you're running, and it can kind of lay it over some, but it's not going to crimp it and going to get it flat on the ground. And when we used it a little bit that we did, the cover crop just sprung back up. Rolling basket would be better than a crimper, I would imagine. We've never used one. I don't have a rolling basket, but I just don't think they're heavy enough to do the job. I mean, it's got horizontal bars on it that would press down on it, but I just don't think the weight's there to really do a good job. It would probably do a little bit better job than the crimper, but I don't think it'd be a good enough job to be worth the trouble. We've actually used a do-all, and it's got chopping blades on it, but the problem is it doesn't crimp the crop. It actually cuts the crop off, and then you got a thick mat, a kind of tangled up cover crop that's really difficult to plant through. It didn't do a very good job for us. I've heard of other people chaining a telephone pole to the front of their tractor and having some way to adjust the height on it, and they just run it in front of the tractor and it lays the cover crop over. And if the cover crop's mature enough, that might work on breaking the stem down at the base, but it's really not a true crimper. So I've heard of a bunch of different ways of doing it. There's also attachments to go on your planter that crimp the cover crop. We couldn't use it on this planter just because of the way the toolbar is designed, but that's another option for other types of planters. So I hope that helps you out a little bit. Next question is from Anderson Baggins. He asked, how do I get my nutrients down in the soil in our no-till conditions? Well, that's a concern that I've heard raised quite a bit about nutrient stratification in the soil because you're not using any kind of tillage tool to disturb the soil and mix the soil. So when you apply nutrients to the top of the soil, they remain on the top of the soil. Actually, newer research has shown that some of the nutrients that we apply are more mobile than what we thought. Now, we always knew that nitrogen was mobile in the soil, sulfur was mobile in the soil, boron was mobile, and as it rained and the water infiltrated the ground, it would carry these nutrients deeper, which is, we're also at a risk of losing those nutrients if the roots cannot intercept them before they get down below the rooting profile. But like your phosphorus, your potassiums, other calcium, magnesium, a lot of those nutrients are really not mobile in the soil, but research has shown that potash can leach out, so it's more mobile in the soil than what we thought. Your phosphorus, your calcium, your magnesium is not quite as mobile in the soil, but I'm a big believer that there's a lot of other factors going on in our soil that help move these nutrients on down into the profile. You got all the biological activity, earthworms, night crawlers, microbes, everything that are moving, up and down in the soil, and they can carry a lot of these nutrients with them. Especially like earthworms and night crawlers that grab residue on the ground, pull it down into the soil to decompose it, and then they're pooping in the soil too. So putting nutrients back farther down in the soil. As far as like pH, you know, your calcium and everything, and keeping your pH down in the soil, that's why we have to be really careful about our liming practices. We need to lime more frequently with less product, so there's kind of a constant trickle. We don't get our soils really basic and then wait till they get really acidic to apply lime again, because it's kind of a yo-yo effect there. You know, we apply lime once every 3 years based on soil tests, and that keeps a constant supply of calcium slowly trickling down into the lower parts of the soil to keep it at a better pH. As far as nutrient stratification, I'm really not all that concerned about it, because the bulk of the roots plants are going to be in the top few inches of the soil. You're going to have more roots going down farther in the soil, but the bulk of the nutrient uptake is going to be from the top few inches of the soil. And well, that's where I really want most of my nutrients, so it's more readily accessible. You got a lot finer and more plentiful roots within the top few inches of the soil that's more likely to intercept a lot of these nutrients that we need. So for me, it's really not a big concern. Next question is from Coulter Hoyt. He asks, would you do a minimal tillage rotation on your fields just to smooth up your fields every so many years? Coulter, the general answer to your question is no. Unless we get into the fields in conditions where we're not supposed to be out there, generally our fields remain smooth enough. Now, that being said, we can't always get out there when the conditions are ideal, and we have to go in times that we really shouldn't be out in the field. But we found out that you know, maybe any ruts that we create or whatever, that over time that those will fill back in and kind of smooth the field back out. And any kind of tillage that we do destroys everything we've worked for on building our soils up. The soil structure, the organic matter. You know, you're introducing a lot of oxygen in the soil that causes the microbe population to really blow up real quick and start decomposing a lot of organic matter. Then you start losing some of your water holding capacity. If you lost your soil structure, then the water doesn't infiltrate into the soil near as well. And I would rather have a little bit rougher fields with really good soil structure that we're going to get water and storage of water in our soils to support the crops than having a smoother ride when we go across the field. Now, that being said, we do have 2 farms that were in pasture for no telling how long. I've been working them 3 years now, and when we first started working the farm, we did some work with the bulldozer and dirt pan, trying to smooth them up a little bit where the cattle had been going across the field for years and years, and those fields are just flat out too rough. And we are going to have to do some select tillage on it this spring to just try and smooth it up, because it's really beating our equipment up. But generally, our ground that has been in row crops a long time, other than maybe an occasional spot tillage or something for a wash or a problem that we've got in the field, we keep the plows out of the field. All right, last question we're going to try and get to today is from Dan Morgan. He asks, where did I get the pumps and meters that I have on chemical totes on the water truck? Well, Dan, we just actually ordered those from Helena. You know, that's where we buy most of our chemicals through, and used to the dealers would supply the pumps that go along with the totes, but they're pretty pricey. I think the last one we bought was like $450, and the margin just wasn't there, so the chemical company Helena quit supplying pumps with the totes, so we could either gravity feed into jugs or we could buy our own pumps. So anyway, I don't exactly know where they buy them from, but we need a pump. We just call Helena, tell us to order us one, and we get it from them. You know, might be able to find them cheaper myself. I just really haven't researched it enough to know. So hope that answers your question. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this video, Ask the Farmer. Sure, here in the next month or so, we'll have an opportunity to do a few more Ask the Farmer videos, because right now we're just we're not in the field doing anything. We're just mainly working on shop work and trying to put out a video every 3 days. Some of these projects, you know, are longer than 3 days, so probably have a few more Ask the Farmer videos to you know, kind of fill in any dead time. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments of this video, and I'll get to them as some point. Might be a while, it might be this August again before I get to, but we'll try and get to as many questions as that you have about agriculture as you can. And again, nothing's off the board. Ask any question you want and I'll do the best I can to answer it. Appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully next video will be us showing what exactly we're doing to this planter this year.